Good morning. Welcome to Carrow Road, Norwich City's first home match of the season here today against Wigan Athletic. Kick-off in an hour's time, 12:30, of course, for television purposes. So in Carrow Road, nice and early. The sun is shining. The pitch looks absolutely glorious. Sprinklers currently watering it to some extent. We've seen the Wigan players, we've seen some Norwich players around the pitch, and we'll have the team news for you in about a minute's time. And I am joined by Sam Seaman to talk through that when it drops. So, Sam, I'll come to you with the probably expectation that I'm about to cut you off immediately anyway. But from a team news perspective, what are you expecting from Norwich today? I guess the obvious one is there we go, and it has dropped. So there we go. It was an expectation. So now I don't have to cut across you. Norwich City line up like this. It's a debut for Marcelino Nunez. The team is this: Krul, Aarons, Omar Balotelli, Ben Gibson, who is captain this afternoon. Yanulis at left back, Sorensen and McLean the two midfielders. Campbell looks like he's going to be playing on the right. Nunez in the 10 position with Milo Rashica behind Timu Pukki. The subs bench: Angus Gunn, Sam McCallum, Gabriel Sara, Onel Hernandez, Daniel Sanani, Josh Sargent and Jordan Hugill. So there we go. Nunez handed debut. Ben Gibson obviously in for Grant Hanley, and Gabriel Sara on the bench. So one debutant, another one on the bench. Sam, let's throw it over to you. Is that probably what you were expecting in terms of Norwich City lineup?
I did actually predict Gabriel Sara in my tactics board video yesterday, but we were speaking a little bit earlier, and upon reflection, I think it was always most likely that Nunez started, because obviously Sara's been out with injury since April, hasn't played a match since then. So it seemed most likely that he would, when you sort of thought about it from an injury point of view. My first reaction upon hearing that team news is that if that team doesn't win a game in the Championship, there's a serious problem, especially if Nunez is the sort of player he's been billed as, and the sort of player Norwich hope they're buying. That is an absolutely fantastic Championship team. I was surprised that Jakob Sorensen kept his place in the team. I'm sure we'll get into that, but other than that, it's an absolutely solid Championship team, and it's hard to think that there'll be many clubs that will field a better 11 in the second division this season. So if they're not beating Wigan today with that 11, then there's clearly a problem, because the amount of quality in those 11 players, especially in the attacking areas, is enormous, really.
Yeah, Marcelino Nunez, of course, was playing in the Chilean First Division as late as last week, actually. I think he was playing last Saturday, wasn't he? So maybe that's probably why he's been given the edge over Gabriel Sara, because he hasn't obviously been injured, first and foremost, but also hasn't probably needed the pre-season or time to adapt to it. That Gabriel Sara is big afternoon for him, of course. His debut in English football looks like he's going to be playing in a more advanced role. To reflect on that midfield more generally, Sam, I mean, you mentioned Jakob Sorensen. I've been calling him Jacob for the last 2 years, but it is apparently Jakob now. So Jakob Sorensen wasn't the best performance at Cardiff. He was taken off in the second half. Does that probably show maybe the lack of defensive midfield options, number 6 options that Dean Smith has available, with Isaac Hayden obviously injured at the moment?
Yeah, and I think that was the problem with his performance last week, really. I didn't think he was particularly bad. I thought technically on the ball he looked tidy throughout the game, really, but he just didn't fulfil that number 6 defensive midfield role. And I think maybe the opposition today and the situation plays a part in him retaining his place. As you said, there's not too much competition, but I think Liam Gibbs is probably the more physical defensive option of Norwich's midfield options. But against Wigan, who aren't expected to be in and around the sort of playoff mix at home, the first home game of the season, Norwich are clearly expected to attack and have possession. I think that probably explains why Dean Smith didn't feel the need to try and find a more robust solution. I think it was clear to everyone that watched that Cardiff game that Sorensen wasn't long-term going to be that midfield enforcer that Norwich need. But I think there is going to be certain Championship games where they can probably get away with it, and if Wigan at home isn't, then there aren't going to be too many that are. So I'm not particularly surprised with it from a tactical point of view. It's just that, that performance at Cardiff was very poor, and I maybe expected to see more changes, and as one of the less impressive performances, I thought Sorensen was maybe in line for that. But fair play to Dean Smith for holding his nerve and keeping him in the team, because I think tactically that probably isn't going to be too much of an issue, although I'm not close to the expertise of a football manager, so I could well be proven wrong come sort of 2:30.
Yeah, I think just to sort of talk about Gabriel Sara, obviously Norwich got this game against Birmingham in the Cup on Tuesday night, which feels like the perfect opportunity to really give him a start after, I think it was May, wasn't it? He sustained that ankle injury, had surgery on that as well, so he's been out for a little while. I'll read you the Wigan team. They've got Ben Amos in goal, Dariqua, Kerr, Tilt and Bennett, their back four. Naylor, Power, Lang, the midfield three, it looks like, with Keane and McLean on either wing. Thank you very much. With Josh McGuinness up front, their subs bench, which is painfully small to read on their Twitter, but thankfully I've just been handed the team sheet, so I can read it off that for you. Is Jamie Jones, Ryan Nyambe, Tom Pearce, Graham Shinney, Philo Asgard, Charlie Hughes and Stephen Humphreys. Interestingly, from the Norwich bench perspective, only one what you would describe as defensive option on there, that being Sam McCallum. Obviously, Ben Gibson comes in for Graham Hanley. Jonathan Tompkinson probably missed off the bench to get other options on there in terms from an attacking perspective. Sam, so much has been made of Norwich City's attack this week. I think that's probably natural given what we saw last weekend at Cardiff, but also what we saw in pre-season as well. That front four, Campbell, Nunez, Rashica, Pukki, as you said right at the top in your first answer, that front four should be good enough to not just score in the Championship, but also create a large amount of chances at this level.
Yeah, we actually both wrote sort of long reads about Milo Rashica this week, and I think that speaks to how much more we're expecting him to produce. He's a very, very talented footballer, and alongside him, Todd Cantwell, who's clearly up for it. Teemu Pukki, probably the best striker in the Championship, certainly in terms of goal record in this division. And Nunez, who Norwich have invested £3.3 million in, if reports are to be believed, and that's absolutely nothing to balk at in the Championship. That's quite a large fee, and they clearly rate him quite highly and expect him to produce. So you'd expect those four are going to be four of Norwich's frontline options this season, if not the four. You'd obviously put Gabriel Sara in that mix, but I think it does sort of pose the question, if they can't create chances today, when are they going to be able to? But I really do think this is going to have the quality this afternoon to produce. They've got the track record. They've clearly got the talent in those players, and I know a few Norwich fans have doubted whether Milo Rashica actually has that in his locker. But I think he got double figures in terms of goals 2 seasons in a row in the Bundesliga, and that's the German top flight. So he's clearly got the talent. He's proven it before. If these four players can unlock their potential at the same time, it could wreak havoc in any Championship defence, really. So it's very exciting, I think, to look at on paper. But that said, Norwich's team was quite exciting to look at on paper last week, and they were beaten by a Cardiff side that I don't think too many teams are expecting to be battling for certainly automatic promotion. So they have to go and do it out on the pitch. As much as their team looks impressive on the team sheet, we're still yet to see it sort of formulate and materialise as a team setup. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether that comes together. They've obviously only had maybe a couple of days training together. So in terms of that fluidity, it might take a little bit of time to get used to that. But the individual quality should certainly be enough, and it is. I can understand it's probably very exciting for Norwich fans reading that today.
Absolutely. Let's conclude by talking about obviously something that happened last night. Norwich City made their 4th summer signing, the signing of Aaron Ramsey, not that one, on loan from Aston Villa. He's the brother of Jacob, who scored a very good goal at Carrow Road last season, albeit against the Norwich side. I think a lot of them were unwell, and half the squad had COVID at the time. So take it with a little bit of pinch of salt. But you speak to people who an Aston Villa nature seem to rate him highly. He's part of the England youth team setup, and he's rated very highly by the FA as well. He spent between January and May on loan at Cheltenham Town in League One, made 14 appearances, only scored 1 goal. I think it's fair to say there were some mixed reviews in there. Dean Smith promoted him to the first team last summer when he was Aston Villa manager, after including him a lot in pre-season. An attacking midfielder by trade. I think he can also play on the right, but predominantly is played centrally. Sam, what do you make of this one? Because Dean Smith, we were speaking to him yesterday morning. He said he wanted an extra dose of creativity in that side. It does feel like this is the player that he's looking to add that to Norwich City's team this season.
Yeah, and it does look very much to be a bona fide number 10, no question of, with Sara and Nunez coming in, there's been this sort of caveat a lot of the time that maybe they're not going to be the creative players that Norwich fans are expecting, and a lot of expectation placed on their energy and athleticism. That doesn't seem to be the case with Ramsey. It just seems to be a straight attacking midfielder, number 10 type, and I think that's probably a step in the right direction and a real recognition that they need to solve that problem. I think the worry is obviously that he hasn't particularly proven it before in his career, maybe at sort of youth levels, especially internationally, but at club level, he was sort of inconsistent for a League One Cheltenham side that didn't get promoted from the third division, and I think that's caused a little bit of worry among Norwich fans, and I totally understand that. But an example that came to my head when I was thinking about it earlier was Christoph Zimmermann, who Daniel Farke brought in, having never really played any higher level than the regionalised German fourth division. But he was somebody he trusted, believed in, and brought in. This is a similar situation with Dean Smith, really. He knows Ramsey. He obviously trusts him and believes in his potential, and he's brought him in. And he's got much higher level experience than Zimmermann had at the time. And obviously Zimmermann went on to play a key role in one Norwich City promotion. So just because he doesn't have the stats and the games under his belt doesn't mean he can't perform. I totally understand the worry, but it's also encouraging, I think, that they really seem to be recognising the creativity problem with the number of players they're signing that can contribute at that end of the pitch, because it's a hole they desperately have needed to fill for a year now, and it's good to see that they recognise that and they're trying to address that problem.
Yeah, there was a really nice quote from Michael Duff, who was at Cheltenham Town last year, now manager of Barnsley, after doing a wonderful job to keep them in League One. I think it's their first season at that level, so did a magnificent job. Obviously rewarded with a move to Barnsley. But he said something along the lines of, I watched him every day in training. I'd sign him again in a heartbeat this year if the opportunity arose. Obviously, Dean Smith has watched him in close quarters in training. As we said, pushed him up to the Aston Villa first team. I would expect him to be involved on Tuesday night. Let's at least watch the lad and see what he's like, I think, before we cast aspersions on maybe the move more generally. Final thing to mention before we go, Lauren Hemp is here today. Of course, she was part of the Lionesses European Championship side that won that tournament. What was it, last weekend? Going to get an incredible reception here today. That's just something to make a note of if you're turning up to Carrow Road shortly, which is filling up shortly. Sam is now going to turn around his laptop so you can see it in all its glory. And there we go. Keep going. Down a little bit, Sam. Down a little bit. There we go. There's Carrow Road ahead of this game, which is due to kick off in about 50 minutes' time. Of course, Sam is on the live blog this afternoon. If you want the live action, the live blog, we'll have plenty of analysis and reaction as well from Dean Smith and from ourselves full time over at pinken.com. And if you're yet to do so, you can take out a trial for the Pinken Plus app on the website. I think there's a little tab in the top left that says Pinken Plus. Click there, follow the details, and you can get access to plenty of exclusive content for an extra month. Thank you very much for watching this. We'll see you again very, very soon.